9 lines from the top of the page. 26a, 9 lines from the top of the page. Of course, yesterday we reviewed the previous day's Gemara, so I guess we're pretty much going to start fresh now. We learned about Oisek b'mitzvah, pater min mitzvah. We learned about Seifrim. And I should mention that there is a diuk from the Magen Avraham. I should mention that one thing from yesterday's Gemara, or 2 days ago Gemara, that there's a Rashi over here that says that the Seifrim, they are exempt because they're doing it l'shem shamayim. They're doing it for the mitzvah. They're doing it to give people, to give the people who need tefillin. Tagreihem, Rashi says, haloichin mehem, the people who buy from the seifrim in order to sell, ulhamtzion l'tzarich lahem, and to give those that need it. So the Magen Avraham says, what happens if a person is selling for a business? Not really so because he's so concerned that people need tefillin, but he's doing it more as part of his business endeavor, that he runs a Judaica store, and he wants to sell the tefillin also as a big markup, or there's a medium-sized markup, he could make money. So if he's doing it for money, the Magen Avraham wants to say you're not eligible for this leniency, that you're exempt from davening and from tefillin and from other mitzvahs. He says that leniency, this exemption only applies if you're doing it for the purpose of the community need. He says, sometimes you do it for both. Of course, you do. So he says it depends what the ikka reason why you're selling it for. It's an interesting thing that he brings out, that there would be an exemption. If that's your main thing, is really to help the community, then it would be exempt. If your main thing is because you have a good business, then you're not exempt from the from tefillin and other mitzvahs. Okay, that's a little deal.
Rabbi, was the culture different? In other words, did the community support the sofrim like a kollel? Like, in other words, the even if he's doing the Sheish Hamayim, he still has to, he has to have a parnasah to exist. So
right, so that's what it seems like. What's his main thing? In other words, is his main thing that he could find no other job, so this was his only way to make some money because he's not capable of doing anything else. So then it's more like money. But if his main thing is, I'm here and I'm capable, I have connections to Seifrim, and you people need to fill in, and let me do this as I feel like a responsibility to help the community, and I can make money on it. So it's then it's more like he's doing it for the community, and he's able to make a living, even though he might make a better living something else. He says, let me just do this because it's really an important need, or I could spend more time on my other business, but let me do this business as well, to help the community. So in that scenario, it would be an exemption. He would be he would be eligible for this exemption of being pater from tefillin and other mitzvahs. Of course, it's an interesting scenario to think, he's doing this for the community, but then he himself doesn't even daven, or he doesn't even put tefillin on. It definitely sounds like an interesting case where he's going to be exempt. But as I mentioned yesterday, this doesn't mean that he never davens or he never does tefillin. It means that there's going to be scenarios where he would be considered exempt. Yes, Victor.
So couldn't we all say we only go to work so we can do mitzvot? We don't go to work. We go to work that enables us that we can do mitzvot. In other words, how are we going to do mitzvot if you don't have some kind of livelihood? We could all say we're only working So
Right.
that
So we're all. I would hope that we try to do everything l'shem shamayim. V'chol drachecha da'eyu, v'chol ma'asecha yu l'shem shamayim. Right. All of our things, and everything we do, we know Hashem, and all of our actions are for Hashem. And our goal of making money is, of course, not just an end in and of itself. It's a means. Money is a means to be able to have a Jewish family and proper proper life for your family. Live normally and put your have everything that everyone needs. Provide for a Jewish household and give tzedakah and send your kids to Jewish schools and pay tuition and everyone should be healthy, health insurance and all the typical things. These are all, it's all because we want them to serve Hashem properly with good health. They should eat well and they should sleep well and they should learn well and do mitzvahs well and serve Hashem with happiness and joy. So you're right. Everything is ultimately for Hashem. But what the Magen Avram seems to be paskening here is that it's the leniency of tefillin seems to be in Sefer Torah and mezuzah and these other these leniencies that apply to the person who's selling it. It's only if his main thing is that he wants to provide for what's in his mind. Is his mind about, I need to provide for my family, or is in his mind I need to provide for everyone else? And this is an avenue that I can also, use for my family. So what's the ikr? It's an it's an interesting diuk. It's interesting that the Magen Avram builds on the way Rashi and just simply on like two words of Rashi, or three words, lahem tzion l'tzorech lahem. But they bring down this Magen Avram that he sort of builds on this Rashi that it's that this is the it depends on this factor. If you're doing it for people for the mitzvah, that's why you're selling this item, then it's okay. Otherwise, not. What bothers me really is the fact that what happens if someone comes to town, they need a pair of tefillin, and you didn't daven yet, and they're not going to be there for a while. They're not going to be here. The next time they come is in 3 months, and they need a pair of tefillin. So, in a certain sense, it's like, oh, well, sorry, I have to go daven now, and if you wait for me, you're going to miss your bus. I guess I'm not going to get you tefillin because I have to go daven now, and I'm not exempt from tefillah because I do it for a living. I do it to make money. So you're going to be stuck not doing tefillin. It does sound like interesting. Like you're going to be stuck not doing tefillin for 3 months because I have to, I have to daven, and I'm doing this to make money.
Yes, see or no? See. Okay.
So yes, Yehuda.
What if the only sofer in town
right does it for money?
Right.
Does it for money? Yeah, I mean, today's day and age, it's not really a problem. It's more of a theoretical. It's more of a theoretical question on the Gemara, like what happens then? I guess he can't do it. He can't write it. I mean, that's the story. So in other words,
but if it's in a place where there's where it's a small community and there's only one sofer and he's doing it for profit, that wouldn't be an exception.
Let me read to you the Magen Avram. It's in chapter 38 in Shulchan Aruch. Let me just read it to you so everyone can hear it. It's Halacha Magen Shulchan Aruch. Chapter 38 and Here, the Shulchan Aruch says, Koisvei Tefillin. Here, if everyone wants to listen to Shulchan Aruch in chapter 38, this is our Gemara, really. Koisvei Tefillin umezuzos. People who write tefillin mezuzos, them, v'tagrehem, and their distributors, v'tagre tagrehem, and I translated it as the retailers, v'chol ha'oiskin b'mlecha shamayim, and anyone that's involved in other things like selling tcheles, the blue ink for the tzitzis, all the other types of oiskim and melecha shamayim, heavenly work that's needed for mitzvahs. Peturim mehanachas tefillin kol hayoim. They are exempt from putting tefillin on all day. Zulas b'shas kriya shema tefillah, except at the time they need to say kriya shema and tefillah, then they wear tefillin. The rest of the day they're exempt. The Ramah says, if they are needed during the time of Kriya Shema and Tefillah, they're even exempt from Kriya Shema, Tefillah, and Tefillin. If you're involved in one mitzvah, you're exempt from another mitzvah. If you would need to bother yourself after the other mitzvah, you're exempt. That was the Ran. Basically, that if you would need to bother yourself to do the other mitzvah, of course, if you could do both with no bother, then do both at the same time. But if it's going to be a tircha, right, going to be a bother, then. But if you could do both together without any bother, then you do both. So that's the Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber, which is Rabbi Yosef Cairo, and the Ramah. Now comes the Magen Avram. So the Magen Avram says, Rashi explains who are the Tagrehem, the wholesalers. They are the people who are haloikhin, the person who buys it in order to give them lamtzion limkar, to sell whoever needs it. To people who buy it in order to sell to anyone that needs it. Now, what does it sound from there? That if they do it in order to make a profit, that's not called oisek b'mitzvah. The Magen Avram says tzarech iyun. This deserves a little research, because in another Gemara it's mashma. It sounds like a machzir aveda, person who returns a lost object, is called an oisek b'mitzvah, even though he does get paid. A person who returns a lost object does get paid for it, so why here can't you get paid to be a cipher, be a business, or to sell the safras? So he says the difference is he's not taking money as like a profit. He's just taking what he could have earned in some other business. He's taking now. So therefore, a person who's doing that is not a problem. That's like returning a lost object. You get paid for the time you spent watching the object because you could have done your investments, and you make a little money on your investments or your this or that. You could have gotten a job at Publix at the store and made $20 an hour, and you're doing, watching feeding the animal. So you get that same 20. So you're just getting schar batola. But if you're doing it to make profit, then you don't get this leniency. Inami, or also over there, your main intention is returning the lost object. But here, the main intention is to make profit. So that's how the Magen Avram seems to differentiate between the case of returning a lost object, where you get paid and you're still doing a mitzvah and you're exempt from other mitzvahs, and the case of tefillin, if you're doing it for profit, then you're not exempt from doing other mitzvahs. So it basically boils down to what your main thing is. Or if you're just taking like a certain fee for your schar batala, it's called, the fee, the money that you would lose for because you're not working in your other business. Yehuda, does that clarify it, Yehuda?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so that's the Magen Avram. Yes, Mordechai.
Isn't there a Gemara that states that being a sofer is a wife of property?
Yeah. The problem is now, today's day and age, it's not exactly so. The Seifrim have a good, they have a good monopoly where they don't allow anyone to sell a mezuzah cheaper than $100. and they're tefillin cheaper than $1,000 or and it's become they learned the business. There's a lot of seifrim that are doing very well. But you're right, there is such a concept that a cipher is are poor, but it seems like they became businessmen. Most of the cipher, it could be the ones who write poor. It's the business cipher, the ones who sell and they buy from others and sell. Those maybe are not the regular cipher. They're maybe that's why. Yes, Moshe. Yes, Moshe.
What would be the difference between somebody who teaches somebody Torah and making a profit, and doing it just as a mitzvah? Are they also, is this the same situation, being exempt as well?
You want to know if a person is teaching, if they would be exempt from davening?
If they're doing it for profits. I mean, yeah, I'm just trying to.
So we didn't really mention about someone who's teaching Torah to be exempt. On the contrary, we mentioned that the Torah is not really such a Torah is not really such a thing. I think Mordechai was talking about the Gemara in Pesachim, that Seifrim should not get rich. And the reason why they shouldn't get rich is because we're afraid they're going to stop writing Sifrei Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzahs if they get rich, and then there won't be enough to go around.
That sounds like a price control policy.
It seems like there might be another way of understanding it, that the Anshe Knesset, it says over there something about the fact that they made fasts, that the shofrim shouldn't get rich in order that they won't stop, they shouldn't stop writing. But there's another way of understanding it. Not that they shouldn't stop writing, that they shouldn't go into that profession to make money. They should write it lishma. They should have yira shamayim, and so they should do it for the right purpose. So if he's not, getting rich, and he's still choosing to be so you're not going to get rich, and you're still choosing to be to be a cipher, means you're doing it because you really feel the need. And I'm glad you brought this up, Mordechai, because this gives us maybe a little understanding of where the Magen Avraham is getting, why he's taking this Rashi and making such a strict halacha out of it, because it seems that it in other words, the concept of a cipher is that it has to be done lishma. Like that's really you see that from the fact that the Anshe Knesset Agdela fasted that the Seifrim shouldn't get rich. So you see that the inyan of Safros is very connected to the fact that it should be done for the right purpose. And if it's done, and here, if the person is just making a business out of it, so he's not going to be called an Isaac. Here, what it boils down to: are you called an Isaac b'mitzvah? Are you really an Isaac b'mitzvah if you're not really doing it for the purpose of the mitzvah? That's really the question here, and this is what they're understanding from Rashi, that you're buying in order to sell it. Are you doing it for the purpose of the mitzvah? And I guess he specifically talks about the tagrehem, the merchants, because maybe the cipher, he's doing it. He's writing the Sefer Torah Tefillin, but the merchant guy, he's the guy who might be making money, because he's buying and selling. There must be a reason why he's doing that. You already start questioning: is there a ulterior motive here? He's buying to sell, like what? That sounds like a businessman. And so on that, it says if he's buying it in order to sell, to provide for those who need it, then he's considered an Isaac b'mitzvah. But if he's buying for the purpose of making money, then he's not called an oisek b'mitzvah. He's engrossed in a mitzvah that he would be exempt from other mitzvahs. So yeah, so that's the previous Gemara. That's an interesting insight, I guess, halacha that comes out with the way Rashi adds that to the equation. Rashi includes that there, and maybe it's somehow connected to the fact that that Safros is meant to be the real mitzvah of Safros is when it's lishma. Well,
Rabbi, the real the retail guy. I mean, if you think about business, when the wholesale guy comes with 20 pairs of tefillin, right? The retail guy has to have enough money to pay him so that he can put in his store. So that now when the regular customer comes, so obviously by putting all that money out up front, he should be, compensated. For. And so now when you come buy one pair, you're gonna say, "Oh, I'm gonna buy one pair." Not going to sell it to you back for what he paid. He's got to, he's got to pay for the store and the lights and the insurance.
Right.
And
no, that's for sure. That's for sure. He's going to make.
And so he could easily be looked at l'shem shamayim. In other words,
right.
In other words, you can't buy this pair from the wholesale guy. You probably can't even go to the sofair and buy a pair. I mean, that's probably hard to do. I don't know. And for you to be able to buy this one pair, or 4 mezuzahs or 6 mezuzahs, it's also.
I hear you. Yeah, the guy can make money. That's what we're clearly saying. He can make a living from it. But the question is, why did he become a scribe? Why is he selling this type of
my question is more on what the Gemara said about the retailer. That's my question, is how do you justify that? That's
the retailer is selling tefillin because he wants to provide tefillin to people in his community, or is he? I'll give you an example. Costco doesn't sell, so it often never has size 15 shirts. You know why? Because 15 and a half is the most popular size, and they don't care to provide for the community. Costco, they could care less. They want to make millions of dollars, and they don't care about you individual and this other individual, because you know why? 15 and a half size neck, that's the most popular shirt. They could buy 1 million of those for a fraction of the cost and then sell them high price. And that's what they sell. Do they care to the fact that I'm a size 15? They could care less. They want to make more money. So they are not doing it for the community. They have a store only to make money. That's all they care about. Then you have a store like Walmart. They also only care to make money, but they also want to provide, even though this item they make 20% on, and they sell 100,000 of them, and the other item they only sell 50,000, but they'll still sell it to you because, of course, they're making money on it, but they also want to provide for the community. They feel like we're providing everything. We're providing all your needs. So here, think of this guy. He has a Judaica store. So if he's saying, "Oh, I have empty space in my store. I got to make money." Okay, let's fill it. Let's do tefillin and mezuzahs. No problem. We'll make money. Then it's making money. But if he's saying, I'm the Judaica store in town, I have to provide, even if I make less money on the tefillin and mezuzahs than I make on my svarim, on my books, and on my tchotchkelach, I'm gonna still sell tefillin and mezuzahs. I have to provide for the community. So that guy is making space in his store special because he wants to provide for the community. So that guy would be exempt. So he's the retailer. He's going to be exempt if he needs to arrange tefillin and talis and mezuzahs for people, and then the time of Shema came and he didn't say it yet. The guy is leaving because his bus is leaving, so he would be exempt because he's providing for the community, and he's doing this because he cares about the community. Yeah, he's getting paid, and of course he's making a little markup, and but he theoretically could make on something else. It's not like he has empty space in his store that he doesn't know what to do with. He could buy other he could buy yard site candles and make money from that. Different types, and 2-day candles Instead, he's buying tefillin because he wants to provide for the community. He feels like this is his responsibility, provide. So then it's more of a, he's considered an Isaac b'mitzvah, even though he makes money on it. But he's Isaac b'mitzvah because that's his mitzvah for the community. That's the way it seems to me. At least it would be. So you have to know what his intention is. Okay, so now the Gemara, the new Gemara, we're up to on page 26a. Page 26a, and we are 9 lines from the top of the page. Tano Rabban, rabbis taught in a brisa. The people who travel by day, Peturim and Sukkah by Yom, they are exempt from the Sukkah by day. And the reason is because a person who needs to go somewhere, if it was the rest of the year and they needed to travel, let's say for business, would they go or would they stay home? They need to travel for business, they go. You are dwelling in your sukkah and you need to go somewhere for business. Are you allowed to go for business somewhere? Or do you need to stay home? Well, if the house is the same as the sukkah, so obviously not on Yom Tov. I'm not talking about you're traveling on Yom Tov. But the point is that that sukkah is supposed to be like you would dwell in your house. And when you dwell in your house, you once in a while take a trip to go somewhere you travel somewhere for the big fair that's happening in Tennessee. You have the World Fair, or some other type of event that's happening. So you have to go to that event because of business. So when you leave your house, you leave your house. So that same leniency, that same idea is how you're supposed to dwell in your sukkah, just like you would dwell in your house. And since you would sometimes leave your house for business, so you would also leave your sukkah for business purposes. And you're gonna lose out in the sukkah. Well, you're not obligated to. And Rashi says this pretty clearly. He says, "Basukos teishvu ke'ein yeshivas beisai," like you would dwell in your house. The same way all year round, you don't stop going on business. So also all the days of Sukkot that aren't Yom Tov, you're allowed to go for a business purpose, and you would be exempt from the sukkah. Now, if you're traveling by day, you're exempt by day, but you would be obligated by night. You would be obligated by night because you're not traveling, and therefore you're not busy. You could why can't you go to a sukkah at night? Let's say you're traveling at night, you would be exempt all night. You'd be obligated by day. Let's say you're traveling day and night, so you're exempt even by day and by night. If you're going for a mitzvah, so then Peturim, you're exempt bein bayoim uvein balayla, even if you're only traveling by day, but nevertheless, you're, as we explained, you're either worried about the mitzvah even at night, so you're being Isaac also. You're in a certain sense, you're being Isaac at night also because you're concerned and you're trying to make sure that you do the mitzvah properly. And or the other point is that you need to sleep properly in order to do the mitzvah properly. And so you're really involved in the mitzvah even at night. And Rashi gives the first reason that I just mentioned. The other reason is mentioned in other commentaries, but that's the idea that you're exempt by day and by night also, even if you're only traveling for a dvar mitzvah. But by day, even if you're only traveling by day, you're going to be exempt even. And the Gemara gives some examples. When they would go on the Shabbos of the holiday to the house of the Reish Hagoyla, the exilarch, so Havuganu Araksa Desura, they would sleep at the edge, the shore of the river of the city of Surah, and meaning not in a sukkah. Omri, and they said, Anan shluchim mitzvah, we're going for a dvar mitzvah, and coming to hear the drasha, and to be makabel pnei reish galusa, to greet the exilarch, and therefore Peturin, and we are exempt. So that was their claim that they should be exempt. Now, this is a very interesting law that we just learned. This law, this paragraph that we just learned, is a very interesting paragraph. So what comes out from this? That if you're going on a trip, are you obligated in sukkah? You're going on a trip. Very interesting question. You know, during the year, you go on trips. You don't stay at home. You go on trips. So your dwelling in the sukkah is the same thing. You're going on a trip. Would you be exempt from a sukkah? So the interesting thing is, Moshe Feinstein has a whole tshuva, two tshuvas really, about this. One of his tshuvas is in Orach Chaim, and he brings down. They asked him. They said, "Are you allowed to go on a trip for pleasure in a place that doesn't have a sukkah?" And he says, based on our Gemara, page 26 of Tractate Sukkah, where people who are traveling are exempt by day when they go for business. And the same thing should apply. Maybe if we are also traveling, you know, for it's not a mitzvah. We're traveling. We want to go somewhere. Would we be exempt from the sukkah? Because during the year we would go out from our house, and therefore we would be exempt. So he says, it seems to me that this would be usher. This would be prohibited. You can't get away with it, he says. Why? Because when you go, when the Gemara says that you're going l'davar harishus, you're going for some regular purpose, he says that's because you need to. You're going l'tzayrech mamish. It's a need. It's a mischar, a business, for a merchant. You're going as part of your work, and you needed to go. It would apply to all people. You would be allowed to go if it was for business purposes. But he says if it's just for pleasure, that there's no need. So he says that would not be an example. It would not be a case where you could be lenient. He says, it's not a need, it's not a necessity. It doesn't help the fact that, if it was during the year, you're living at home, you would travel for your pleasure. So you can't say, so now from the sukkah, I'm going to travel for my pleasure, for pleasure. Because when you would leave during the year, it's not a need, it's not a necessity. He says, what would happen if you enjoy sleeping outside? You have a house and you have a backyard. What would be if during the year you like to sort of like camp out in your backyard? So he says, are you going to say, well, I don't always sleep in my house. I enjoy sleeping outside. So just like I sleep outside during the year, so now also I don't have to sleep in the sukkah, because during the year I sleep outside. So now also I don't have to sleep in the sukkah. I could sleep outside or in my house, because even during the year I leave my house sometimes to sleep outside. Are you going to be exempt? So he says, obviously not. He says, so the same thing would apply here, that the whole leniency only applies if it's a necessity. If it's for necessity, then you would be exempt. But if you just want to go on a trip, so let's say you travel Chol Hamoed, you travel far away, you're not going to be exempt because of a holchei drachim. Holchei drachim is when you need to go, not when you go for pleasure. But there is another tshuva of Rav Moshe that has an interesting leniency, and the other tshuva is in Even HaEzer. It's and here he brings down. He says. Person is traveling and he goes to Eretz Yisrael for a short time. He wants to see Eretz Yisrael and he only has a few days. And this is a need. It's not just pleasure. He wants to, this is something this is important to him. It's a tzorech gadol, he says. It's a big need. So he says for such a person, it's mistaber. It makes sense that he's exempt if he's not able to go days afterwards, other days on this trip, or add days to his trip, and he needs to. And he says it's not only because of its Eretz Yisrael. Even if it's a different place. Eretz Yisrael is actually more like a mitzvah, maybe. But even a different place, he's traveling to another country, and there's things that people want to see. So he says that there you would be allowed to travel there without a sukkah if you can't find you can't travel after sukkah. You're not available. It's impossible. He says, but to just go on a trip is not an exemption. But if you're traveling, you're there, and you want to see the country, and you're not going to be able to travel any other time there. So for you, this is like a major necessity. So for you, this would be an exemption. You would be eligible to be exempt from the sukkah. So it seems like he puts two qualifications to this leniency of going. Number one is that you don't have any other time that you would be able to make this trip. Let's say you're there anyway for sukkahs, so you're only there for the Yom Tov because you're there to visit someone, and you're anyway there. You really want to see the country, and it's considered like a regular necessity. How do you go to France and not see the Eiffel Towers or the whatever? You go to the Switzerland, you don't see the Alps. So you go to some place. So there, and you're not going to be able to stay later for whatever reason. You have work. So there, he says, so you don't have extra days, and it's more like a tzorech. It's like a need that you really feel this necessity to see it. So that you would be exempt from the sukkah. You would actually be allowed to let's say eat out of the sukkah. If you're sleeping there, sleep out of the sukkah, because that would be a case of need and a case of that you don't have the option to do it any other time. So that's an interesting leniency from Rav Moshe, that you could get away without eating or sleeping in a sukkah on a certain type of trip. But normally it doesn't. It's not the exemption normally doesn't apply because it's really only for work purposes, which is interesting that someone's working during Chol Hamoed, which is not encouraged to work during Chol Hamoed, and you don't normally see a siman bracha, but because it's allowed, it's at least people are allowed to go for work. So for that, you would be exempt from eating in a sukkah and sleeping in a sukkah. Yes, Jeffrey.
I think we always have to put in perspective that our type of world is very different from the past. So whether it's the Magen Avraham or any other commentators, the fact is that people were not able to schedule journeys precisely as we can now. So really, I think that these exemptions came about because of people who were already traveling. They already were traveling, and they're trying to get home. but it just didn't work out. There were no boats. The camels were sick. Whatever it was, you couldn't find anybody to lead you, and you had to have a guide. So those are the cases, especially, and that's why they say if you went to a particular place, let's say you went on business, and then you were in this very important place, and maybe you wanted to see if you could make some other connections. It wasn't planned business, and you have to learn about the country. You have to learn about how it works in order to do business there. So then you're already there. Then I can understand this exemption, and I think.
Right. Well, Ramesha wrote this. I mean, I could tell you what year he wrote it.
Oh no, I know he's a modern man.
This year, it can't be that. It's from Tufchin Mem Aleph. It's 1981. But so anyway, the bottom line is that Ramesha's ruling there. I think the example, the case would be a case where, let's say, you're traveling somewhere for a simcha, or you're traveling there for a speaking engagement. You're traveling there, and you have to get back for work. So you're only there for Yom Tov. You're only there for Yom Tov, and that would be a case where you're not gonna be able to stay after Yom Tov. You're there you're limited you have to be back for work, and that would be a case maybe of an exemption. But what it also teaches us is that normally you don't have this exemption, because if you just want to go take a trip, figure out, build yourself a sukkah, figure something else out. You're not just a regular holchei drachim. Anyway, so I think it clarifies.
Is there another place where they bring up the lulav? Does the exemption extend to the lulav? Right. I know we tried to travel with lulav, but sometimes it's very difficult on planes and things like that. You're better off order where you're going to.
Where you're going, right?
Order it for you.
Right. Okay. Next Gemara. Tano Rabbanan. The rabbis taught in a brisa. Shoimrei ha'ir bayoim. The people who watch the city by day, and they sleep in their house at night. Peturin min hasukkah bayoim v'chiyam b'layla. So they are exempt by day because they need to be watching the city, and they're obligated when they go home. They have to sleep in the sukkah. Shomer here balayla. Let's say they watch the sukkah, they watch the city by night. Return min hasukkah balayla b'chayom b'yom. Then they'd be obligated in dwelling in the sukkah by day. Shomer ha'ir bein b'yom bein balayla. The people who are watching the city, whether by both, in other words, by day and by night, they're staying there 24/7. So then they're patur min hasukkah bein b'yom bein balayla. They are exempt from the sukkah by day and by night, both times, and that's makes sense that that's their work. They're working there, and they're going to be exempt from the sukkah. Shomer ginais upardesim, the people who are watching their garden in their vineyard. So Peturin, Bein Bayoim, Bein Balayla, they are exempt by day and by night. And Rashi says they don't leave from there. Einay Zazin Misham. So that sounds like that they're also there 24/7. So they have to stay there by day and by night. So the Gemara asks, Vili Avdu Besukkah. The sukkah hasam, let them make a sukkah over there and dwell in the sukkah. Because if they're staying there 24/7, or at least a day or two, 24/2, 1 or 2, they're staying there a day or two at a time. So let them build a sukkah over there. That's where they're dwelling.
Morning,
Good morning.
Excuse me.
So the Gemara says, Amra Abaye. Abaye says, no. Teishru kain taduru. That they dwell in their sukkah, similar to how you would dwell in your house all year round. And in your house all year round, you have all of your items that you need. And that's how you dwell in the sukkah. And since you're not able, it's impossible to bring all of those items because of the bother that it would entail, the hardship that it would entail. So it comes out that your dwelling in the sukkah would not be like your dwelling in your house. So then you would be exempt. In other words, the obligation to dwell in a sukkah is similar to your expectation of dwelling in your house. And so since this this dwelling in your sukkah would not be similar to that, therefore you would be impossible to be similar to dwelling in your house. And therefore there would be an exemption. You would be exempt from dwelling in the sukkah. Rava Amar Rava says, no, you don't have to build a sukkah there because Pirza Kairila Ganav, a breach calls out to the Ganav, to the robber, hey, come and take, right? That's what a breach, there's a breach in the wall. It's almost like an announcement that telling the Ganav to come and you could steal over here. And the same thing would be if the watchman is hanging out in the sukkah, so the Ganovim will realize that, especially in the, when they have a three-walled sukkah, so it's even visible, especially if they use lattice, and therefore it wouldn't be possible to do your work because you're basically the dwelling in the sukkah. The Ganovim are going to come and steal everything from the other side. So therefore you are not obligated in dwelling in a sukkah. The Gemara says, "My beinai." What would be the difference in halacha between Abaye's answer and Rava's answer? The Gemara says, "Iko beinai." The difference would be the kamanter karya de peri, that the guard is watching the one pile of fruits. In other words, not like a whole vineyard. He's watching one pile of fruits that's piled up, and it's near him. So you could build a sukkah right next to it, and you don't have to worry. And so, according to Rava, you'd be obligated to build a sukkah there to be able to watch the fruits. According to Abaye, no, because since you're far away from your residence, it's too much of a bother and hardship to bring all of your items there, and therefore you would be exempt from dwelling in a sukkah. So that would be the law of the guards on sukkahs. I guess this would apply is when you have these guard houses here, especially like here in Florida. Would they, the guardhouse, the guard attendant, I guess they're allowed to leave for a few minutes at a time. I don't know if they have to go to the bathroom, if they, I don't know, they call someone else there. So the question would be, would they be exempt? Would they be allowed to eat a regular meal while they're in the guardhouse? Or so if we just take a look in Shulchan Aruch here.
I mean, this year we had the Israeli soldiers all over, especially the north and the south.
Right.
Obviously, that a lot of this would apply. That whatever they're doing, that it's more important to be careful than to.
Right, for sure, sure. This case, Shomer Yair Dalid, is in Siman Tov Reish Mem 640. Let's just pull up here Shulchan Aruch here 640. People who are exempt from dwelling in the sukkah, and it talks about, which we'll soon see, about the cholim, person who's sick, mitzdayer, and the person who's in pain. And then we have the case of Avel, Chasan, Shluchei Mitzvah, and now in Holchei Drachim, people who are traveling, and then Shomerei Ha'ir. It says the guards of the city, they're exempt by Yom, by day, and they're obligated at night. The guards of the city at night are exempt at night. They're obligated by day. The Shomerei Ginais upardesim, the guards of the gardens and the vineyards, they're exempt always, because if the shomer makes a sukkah, so the ganav is going to know, and he'll steal from the other side, and therefore, if it's only it's only a pile of grain that he could watch from one side, so it's chayav to make a sukkah. Person, the Ramah says, they have to watch that the goyim don't come and touch the wine. So people who make wine by the goyim, so they are exempt from sukkah. They're making it during sukkahs, and if it's in a way that they can't, that they're not needed, then they would be obligated in a sukkah. So that's basically the Shulchan Aruch here. Let's just see the Mishnah Berurah here has anything. He says if the wine is placed in the courtyard, they need to make a sukkah in the courtyard so he could watch it while he's in the sukkah, according to the ways that it's explained in Yeridea, the rules of, so that's basically the laws of the Shomrei. Here, 1 second, there's a Mishnah Berurah here. Shomrei Yair, the people who watch from enemy enemy armies, that they shouldn't come. They need to they need to walk around the city to watch it, and they're not able to make a sukkah in one place. Now, what about people who watch money that it shouldn't get stolen? So it depends. The people who watch the stores at night, they're exempt only at night. People who dwell in the stores, and they normally eat in their store. So the question would be, would they be allowed to eat in their store on Sukkot? During the year, they eat in the store. They don't go home to eat. So they dwell in the store. Question would be, the whole year round, they eat in the store. So would they be obligated in going to a sukkah in order to eat their meal if all year round they don't go home to eat their meal? So the Mishnah Berurah says, yes, they're obligated in eating in a sukkah, even if they live outside the city and their store is in the city. They would need to build themselves a sukkah. We'll have to understand why that is. Why aren't they, considered like a shomrim? You could say a shomer can't leave. They're able to leave. It's just time consuming. So I guess that would probably be the difference. That a shomer can't do it. You can't leave. It's not but the question is, but is it considered teshvu kain toduru? Is it considered in my house? I leave my house and I eat outside. I eat in the store. So why shouldn't I be able to eat in the store on Sukkot? I guess the way we look at it is that the eating in the store is similar to your house now. This is where you normally eat your meal. This is like my house for eating my meal. Now, what would happen if a person eats often in a restaurant? So you say, oh, I don't normally eat in my house, so now I don't have to eat in a sukkah? No, the restaurant is like your house, I guess. That's now that's what you normally use as your house. So just like you eat your meal in a normal place, or you eat your meal in your store. So now, in sukkahs, you have to go out and eat in a sukkah. Yes, Moshe.
If there's mezuzot on the store, isn't that like a Beit Knesset, like somebody's home? I mean, basically.
So okay. I mean, it's right. It would seem like that could be the understanding that that's like your house now. That's your store. That's where you're dwelling, so to speak, by day. Okay. Anyway, so you would be obligated in going to a sukkah to eat your meal. Okay, so that's the Gemara about guards. And now we have the next Gemara. People who are someone who's sick, and the people who are aiding the people, attending those people. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught in a brayso, the person who's sick that the rabbis talked about, that he's exempt from a sukkah. Again, the Mishnah said that. The Mishnah said that the choyle u'mashamsheim are exempt from a sukkah. That was the Mishnah in on page 25a. The choyle u'mashamsheim are exempt. So the Gemara says, the rabbi saw the brayso that the choyle sha'amru, the sick person that the Mishnah talked about, that the rabbi spoke about, that he's exempt. We're not only talking about a choyle that has a danger of life, even if his life is not in danger. Even if he has pain in his eyes. And boy, what does it mean, pain in his eyes? It means not that his eyes could become blind. He just has pain in his eyes, not danger. There is such a concept that the eyes, the Gemara says that the person has pain in his eyes. It could be a very dangerous thing, which the Gemara says could be sakanas nefashos machal Shabbos. But here, even if it's not such a, it's not a sakanas ayin or sakanas nefashos. It's even just pain in his eyes, and even chosh b'roisha, or a headache, even a headache. Now, it's interesting in the laws of Purim, of Tainus Esther. I think it says over there that a person who has pain in his eyes, he would be exempt from fasting on Tainus Esther. Tainus Esther is very lenient with regard to someone who's sick. So over there also, I think he used the same term. The problem is that the Gemara says that the person who has pain in their eye, it could be Machal Shabbos. Because I think I think in today's day and age it would be called glaucoma, which is extremely dangerous. Could lead to death even. Well, Sean, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, the problem with glaucoma is if you don't treat it, you could go blind
right away. You go blind, but it's not.
It's a very gradual thing. So what happens is that's why when you go for your checkups, they check every year to make sure that the pressure is not going up, but. They're more worried is it's a silent. It's the opposite. In other words, there's no side effects until you lose your sight, and now you're out of luck because they can't go back.
Right.
So they can treat it when they catch it early. And then but it must be something else that
so that's something else. Must be something else that the Gemara talks about.
There's eye infections, and there's pink eye, and there's all kinds of things that bother a person a lot.
The Gemara has a term that something in the eye is connected to the heart. There's something there in the eye that's connected to the heart. It could be a sakanas nefashos thing. So here where the Gemara says, even if someone has pain in the eye, it means not a serious pain. It means more like a light pain in his eye, that we're not worried that it's a danger, but it's just he's in pain. And even if it's just a chosh b'roisha, a headache. One time I had pain in my eye. It was Sukkot, Kislev, in the city of Kislev. And V'hiter Reb Yosi Beribi, Reb Yosi, the Chacham, the sharp one, the wise one. He was matir me. He permitted me lishain ani mashamshi chutz l'sukkah, that we could sleep outside of the sukkah. And it says Rav Shirala Rav Acha Bardala. Rav permitted Rav Acha Bardala lemigna b'chilta, to sleep inside some type of a kila, in a bed that was surrounded, that was covered, that had a 4 poles. It was inside the sukkah, but you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of sukkah because it's a tent, and it's 10 tefachim high. And it's considered like you're sleeping outside the sukkah, and he permitted me to sleep in it because I was in pain. Mishum bakeh. Bakeh is because of the mosquitoes, and because of the mosquitoes, I slept in this some type of a screen that the mosquitoes wouldn't wouldn't bother me, and it wasn't considered like I slept in the sukkah. And yet he permitted me to do it because I was in pain. So this is the concept of mitztair. A person who's in pain is also exempt from a sukkah. So before we learned about a choyle, and here we're learning about a mitztair, someone who's in pain. We'll soon discuss a little more. We're going to stop here. Zygazon to everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Go on, Rabbi. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.